this out. So we want a little section of the noise floor here, just noise floor, nothing else. Again, no dialogue, no breath. Select that and then go to effects, go to noise reduction process. And then this little window is going to pop up. And then with that section still selected, we want to capture that noise print. And then what you're going to see is little, pixelated visual representation of your noise floor. This blue bar here is basically, it's asking you how much of this, like what's the threshold of how much of this noise you want to remove. So I just raised this bar up a little bit. Again, I don't want to go too heavy on the noise reduction because we're also going to be using a equalizer that cuts out some of that low end noise too. But if you wanted to further refine in Adobe Audition how much of this particular frequency of noise you want to remove, you can tell it, I want to reduce it by a percentage or by dB. You can tell it down here. I just keep it, again, minimal, a 21% or 3.1 dB. That might even be a little bit high. But because this frequency of noise runs through the entire file, and we need to remove it from the entire file for audiobooks, for the noise floor standard, I'm going to select entire file, then I'm going to apply it to the entire file. Excuse me. So as you can see, it didn't remove it completely, but that's fine because once we apply my effects rack, it'll further reduce it a little bit, and then we'll double check it. The next thing I'm going to do is come to my effects rack, and I have a preset that I have created for just about everything I do, voiceover and audiobooks. I use this one preset for everything that I do. Excuse me. And then in it, I have an NS1 mono. And I know there are better other noise reducer plugins out there. I realize that, but I'm kind of old dog, new tricks, right? NS1 works for me. It is a little bit harsh. I use it minimally. I think my setting is, let's take a look at this really quick. I have it at 2.8. And I really think that you really shouldn't be using this any higher than 10, right? It just ends up muffling you and making you sound worse than you sound. So I use that sparingly. The other effect that I use is a mouth declick from Isotope. We talk about this suite of plugins all the time, the Isotope RX11. This is RX10. I haven't updated it yet because it still works fine for me. But the mouth declick focuses on the clicks that our mouths make when we speak. This one is very good at differentiating from a mechanical click to a organic sounding click. I know it's kind of grody, but we have sticky mouths. Our mouths make noise. So this will help to reduce some of those clicks. And then we have a deplosive in here because even though I have my microphone off axis, meaning it's not directly in front of my mouth, and I also have a pop filter on my microphone, I still get animated and move around a little bit, and this will help to catch those plosives before they go into the microphone. It'll help reduce them a little bit. I'm sorry, not before. The deplosive removes them once they're recorded. The pop filter and the off-axis microphone helps to reduce it before it gets recorded. Getting all excited. The DS is also from Isotope RX10, and this will help to reduce some of the sibilance. I am a naturally very sibilant speaker. I think it's my seed cracker front teeth here. It produces a little bit of a whistle in my S's. It'll help to reduce that a little bit for me. And then I have my parametric equalizer. Now, this particular equalizer was made especially for me, my room, my space, my equipment, my voice. It was made for me by Tim Tippett, who I initially was going to have on today to talk to, but due to technical difficulties on his end, we had to reschedule. I'm hoping for next week, maybe the week after. We'll see. Keep your fingers crossed. But he made this especially for me, so I use this on everything. And then, oh, like I mentioned before, totally forgot. The way that this is set up, he's got a high pass on here that cuts to about 50 right there. So anything below 50 down here as the noise floor will be cut with that equalizer. And then the last effect I have on here is a single band compressor. Now, Adobe Audition has a multi-band compressor, and it has a few different ways that you can do this, but I just keep it simple. There is a voiceover preset for the single band compressor, but I have changed it up a little bit over the years, and I'm still, of course, we're always still tweaking our effects. So this is my settings for my single band compressor. And the purpose of the compressor is to basically bring, just to put it in layman's terms, if you're just at the very beginning, to bring some of these peaks that are up here in the waveform and some of these lows, like some of these peaks, some of these lows, it makes them a little bit more uniform in volume. So that will help you with the RMS standard, which is basically the average volume of your file, right? So compression is definitely a must. So once I've reduced the noise on the file, I'm going to apply my effects rack. So we'll go ahead and let that do its thing. It's going to take a couple of minutes there. Just checking the comments really quick. Yeah, for the noise floor, for the noise reducer, NS1 is just what I've always used because I've been doing this for a while. And it was one of the first noise reducer plugins that I liked. Nowadays, you have Clarity. There's also, I think, a couple of different options within the Isotope RX10 or RX11 suite of effects. But I just haven't really needed to go out and look for another one, but maybe I should. Thanks for the donuts, Rebecca. Oh, by the way, we have a new donut member. Susie, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. All right, so now that the effects have been applied, you can see the difference. We just flip back and forth here. So that's the original, lots of peaks, lots of lows, and then after we've added all of our effects, you can see the difference. The volume is a little bit more uniform. And I can still see where I've clicked. There's a click there for a mistake. Now, I just want to tell you, there were an awful lot more mistakes in this file. I had to go through and edit some of them out, but I did want to leave one in just to show you how I remove my retakes because I use the clicker method to mark mistakes with my dog training clicker here. Some people use the punch and roll method. I use the clicker method. Again, old dog, new tricks. That's how I started, and I just kind of go with it. But I wanted to show you how I remove my edits, or my retakes, rather. Okay, so now that I've applied my effects rack, my noise reducer, now what I'm going to do before I start editing, I'm going to go again and find a nice sample of cleaner room tone to use as we go through, and you'll see what I do with that. But what I'm going to do down here at the bottom right, I'm looking at the duration as I select, because I want to grab about 0.6, that looks good, 0.676 seconds of silence, not silence, of room tone. And I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to use that clean room tone to adjust my pauses, to adjust the head and the tail to meet ACX's standards. Excuse me. So while we do that, I'm going to put my ears on so I can hear what I'm doing. Mistakes to avoid. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is adjust the head of this file, because for ACX, the head of your file, the narration needs to start between a half a second and a second. So there needs to be somewhere between a half a second and a second of room tone. Now, if you recall, I copied 0.676 seconds of silence, so that is already kind of right between the half a second and a second. So pasting that in just put me right in that standard. So the narration needs to start between here and here. So I'm pretty much right in the middle of that. Now, because this was the header of this audition, I'm going to give this a little bit of a pause. So I'm going to select all of this silent, or all of this pause here, and just adjust it. Maybe three of those. We'll put in 3 of those. We'll paste in 3 of those. Okay. And then we're just going to listen through a little bit here. We're not going to go through the entire file, but I'm just going to show you what I do.
Each of us has made a heart mistake at least once.
All right. I see this retake here, so I'm just going to see where I restarted this.
Each of us has made a...
Okay, so each of us.
But if you dream of true partnership...
I think that was...
Each of us...
Oh, that was the beginning. Okay, so I didn't like the way that I started this audition, so I just completely restarted. So what I'm going to do is take my playhead, and I'm going to just select all of this, because I just completely restarted, and then we're going to delete it. Right? Now what I do is I'm just going to visually look through here. Now, obviously, if you see any more clicks where you marked a mistake, go through and do what I just did, remove the retake, or remove the bad and keep the retake. Oh my God, I hope I'm not confusing you. But now visually, I'm just going to go through and look and see if there's any big breaths like this one. I'm just going to listen to it and see if it sounds weird. I'm going to be looking for pauses. I'm going to be looking for shuffle noises or breaths or any weird things that stand out to me to fix. Yeah, it looks like we got a couple of places in here where I might have paused. So let's just look through these really quick.
Plan upside down. This chapter is your...
Okay, so that's the start of a new paragraph, perhaps. So I'm going to give that a little bit more of a pause and get rid of that weird breath.
Too early. Chemistry, a spark, sex. But the emotional bond...
I should probably edit that out.
Myself for him.
I'm going to get rid of that breath and give it a little pause.
You give up on your own values, passions, even your grandma's knickers, because he prefers something else.
I hope you guys can hear it.
Attracts it naturally.
Okay, there's another big breath between paragraphs. I remember this part.
Mistake number 4.
Oh, that's right. We're listing out mistakes.
Mistake number 3.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and just make sure that these are...
The result? He received everything before he had to make any effort. Mistake number 2.
Okay, where's mistake number 1?
Mistake number 1.
There it is. All right, so I'm going to give myself an extra little pause here, and I'm going to break out the different sections. I hope you guys can actually hear this. Let's see.
The result?
Okay, mistake number 2. There it is. All right, so I'm going to give that a nice little equal pause, equal to the first mistake, since we're listing out mistakes.
Mistake number 3.
Okay, that one's got a little bit of the same. All right.
Mistake number 3.
Okay, this should be...
Mistake number 4.
Mistake number 4. I hope you guys can hear. Can you guys hear what I'm playing here?
Love does not hurt. If he cannot...
You can hear it? Good. Thank you for letting me know. Okay.
Mistake number 5.
All right, so let's give that a nice little pause, and then I don't think there should be so much of a pause here, so I'm going to reduce this a bit.
Grandma's knickers. Yes, it sounds funny, but leaving them in the drawer means...
All right, so let's just adjust this pause here.
Realizing these few mistakes will allow you to eliminate them completely.
There's another breath. I'm just going to reduce that.
And what if he says, space appears for what is real?
Okay, let's reduce that. That was too much of a pause.
Appears for what is real. And what if he says, I don't want a relationship? What then?
Okay, so I asked a question here, so I'm going to give that a little bit more of a pause to give the listener a moment to go, oh yeah, so what then, right? And remember, this is an audition, so I want to show the author what this is going to sound like.
It is a gift.
I'm going to leave that pause. Let's see. The
truth. And do not try to interpret that truth differently. Like, he's just afraid. He was probably hurt before. He hasn't got to know me well enough yet, etc.
I'm going to get rid of that breath.
And here, the list of your excuses is really long.
Ooh, a little bit of a mouth noise there. I'm just going to airbrush that out. And then reduce this pause because I think I shifted the script.
The truth is that men are not as complete is really long.
Let's crease that pause there. For dramatic effect.
Cross his boundaries. You do not wear your grandma's knickers so that you can now run after someone who doesn't want to build anything with you. They are your shield against illusion.
Okay, we're making a point there, so I'm going to make that a cleaner pause.
They are your shield against illusion.
Actually, I'm going to shorten that pause a bit. Oh, here's another mistake. I left it in for you.
Ben, focus on what is. And the man has just...
There we go. And get rid of that retake.
What is. And the man has just told you that he doesn't want it.
Can you guys guess what this audition was for? Hopefully it's still available by the time we're done. All right, so now that we're at the end of the audio file here, I need to now make the tail or the end of this audio file. There has to be about between a second and 5 seconds of room tone. So taking that room tone that I have copied, because I want it to sound consistent, I'm not just going to cut out time. I'm just going to paste in what I already have about 4 times. That way it's a consistent floor. It's a consistent volume all the way through. Now I'm just going to measure that. Looks like we're at 2.726 seconds. Perfect. All right. I'm happy with it. We've edited it. Now we're going to normalize it to -3. And then after we do that, then we're going to spot check it to make sure that it passes all of the standards. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if we don't, I'll show you how to fix it. So I have normalized to -3 dB on a hotkey. But to find that, you would just go to Favorites and hit Normalize to -3. All right, now that we've normalized it to -3, I'm going to go to Amplitude Statistics. And if you don't have, if you don't see Amplitude Statistics and you have Adobe Audition, all you got to do is go up to Window and just make sure that it's checked. That little effect window is going to pop up and you just drag it to wherever you want to. I just dragged it over here next to my effects rack, so that way these two are where I need them. All right, so now that we have Amplitude Statistics, slow down, Angela, Amplitude Statistics, then I'm going to scan this file. All right, so my peak amplitude is exactly -3. It can be lower. Remember that the peak amplitude of -3 dB is not your target. It is a threshold. So if you're below that, that's fine. You just do not want to eclipse -3 dB. But the other problem I see is that my total RMS amplitude is at -17.51, which means it's way too loud. So we're going to have to reduce the volume a little bit. And then, actually, I'm not even going to check the noise floor right now because we're going to have to adjust this anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my little history bar down here and just undo normalize. And now we know we're too loud. So what I'm going to do is just reduce the volume of the file just a few dB. Let's go down to 4.8. And then I'm going to renormalize it. And we're going to check it again. And it's still too loud. Did I go back too much? Hang on. I think I didn't go back far enough. There we go. Now. Now let's reduce it. Okay, now we're going to normalize it again. Did I actually go back too far this time? No, I didn't. Okay, let's scan it. Getting distracted. Okay. Now, my peak amplitude is exactly -3. My total RMS is now at -20.36, so we're right in the middle between -18 and -23. So we know that tracks, right? So now let's check the noise floor. Now, just as I said before with ACX's software, it's going to spot check. Usually in places where there is a lot of room tone, right? So I'm going to check here, and watching my volume bar down here, I can't see because the stupid StreamYard thing is in the way. Let's move that. So it looks like we are under -60, so good. So let's spot check a couple other places. Let's check here. And we're under. Okay, good. Let's check a couple other places. Good. Work there. Okay. Let's see. Let's check here. Good. Let's check in a place where I didn't paste in that room tone. Let's try here. Good. Okay. And then here. Good. Cool. All right. So this file passes ACX's standard. Now, the last thing I'm going to do after I've verified all of that, you have to save it as an MP3. And the sample type is going to be 44/100 hertz. And your bit depth is 16 bits. And then we're going to hit OK. Now, I find that sometimes when I save it as an MP3, it shifts the dynamics of the file a little bit. So I'm going to check it again just to make sure that it didn't change too much. And sometimes it'll get a little bit louder, like the peak amplitude will eclipse that -3. It didn't this time, but if it does, all you need to do is make sure that the entire file is highlighted and just drop it down. Like reduce the whole file volume by like 0.3 dB, and then scan it again. And then it should at that point be under the -3. Even if it needs more than 0.3 dB, if it needs if you need to take down 0.9, whatever it is, to make sure that your peak amplitude is under -3 and your RMS is still within range. So that's what I do with my files. So let's